welcome to the Red Half of Sheffield preview pod. A big one coming up a week Monday, 1 versus 2 in the championship, and probably whoever wins will probably put one hand on the championship trophy, I would imagine, because it seems to be that the others in and around us are kind of dropping points at innocuous times. That's a long-winded introduction for we have a Leeds a week from Monday. And I am joined by Max from Leeds Lately podcast YouTube channel. Max, how are you doing this early afternoon UK time, early morning stateside?
Yeah, good, thank you. Yeah, I'm looking forward to we talked about before, didn't we, before we started, a couple of tough fixtures for Leeds, so I'm looking forward to seeing what happens on the other side of them.
Yeah, we are. I will press this with saying we are recording before the Sunderland match, so we don't know the result of that, and we don't know the health of the play. If there's any injuries on the Leeds front, we're kind of shooting from the hip, previewing this one. So Leeds been pretty clinical this season. Your thoughts on the season as a whole, and do you see this staying the course? As you mentioned, a couple of harder fixtures, Sunderland tomorrow, then Blades, then even West Brom, so it gets a little bit more trickier. Sum it up for us.
Yeah, it's been a good season. I think overall, like last season, we had some individual talent that was really good, like Somerville, Jorginho Rutter, and Archie Gray, in which obviously we made like 100 million or something from those three signings. But I think from those three sales, sorry. But I think this season we're actually more well-rounded as a squad. Bringing in players like Tanaka in the midfield for just 2 or 3 million, he's been a revelation. His statistics are unbelievable. And I think more well-rounded overall. And I think we've been more clinical this season as well. Something that we've said over the last couple of seasons as Leeds fans is that we need so many chances to be able to score. And luckily, being in the Championship last season, we created so many chances that we were able to win games. But this season, we just seem to have put them away more. I mean, against Watford when we won 4-0, it's just like every shot seemed to go in, and that is just not something that Leeds fans are used to happening. It's really not something we're used to seeing. So this season, like you said, I think we've just been a lot more clinical. We've actually been finishing our chances, and yeah, it's been amazing to see us actually score goals consistently, and we scored a lot of goals.
You're the only team in the league that's blowing the opponent away. It seems like almost every week, which is pretty impressive. The first 7-goal game since Fulham did it a few years ago. So, it's this Leeds team is built the right way, and obviously it looks like they're going to be good enough to probably go up automatically. And obviously you probably echo the same thing. You don't fancy you falling off and dropping into the playoffs. It's probably now down to 2.5 horse race. Burnley's clinging on. Burnley is clinging on, but they just don't score goals and they don't concede goals. So when you do that, it's just going to be draws. And I think the gap from us to Burnley is 5. Now, if you go and beat Sunderland tomorrow, that puts you back in front. And in say we were to win a week from Monday, that clears us even more of the chasing pack. I think this is setting up to, if we put a few results together and you put a few results together, I think we might go up in tandem. Whoever puts their hands on the trophy at the end of the season, I'd probably shade you guys just because I think you're a much better side than we are. So do you think the squad from last year's playoff defeat, do you think the squad has learned from that and it's given them more of urge to want to beat teams and put teams away early because you're not really struggling with many sides in this division. Even hell, the reverse fixture, you beat the hell out of us. We didn't even have a sniff in that game. You just dominated it from start to finish. Do you think the players that are still in that team from last year's playoff final defeat are playing with the chip on the shoulder, and that's why they're going out and hammering everybody?
I think there's certainly an element of that. I also think that because this is Daniel Farke's second season at Leeds, the first season, I don't think one season is truly long enough to get your full philosophy across to your players. And I think last season there was a lot of individual brilliance that was winning those games. It was a lot of Jorginho Rutter just bringing the ball out of the sky and nutmegging a goalkeeper, and everyone just going, he's done it again.
Yeah.
Or Somerville just curling one in the top corner. I think this season we play so much more as a team. Everybody knows their roles and responsibilities. Even the new guys that have come in know exactly what they need to be doing, and they are helped by, like you say, the guys who experienced this whole system last season and are now improving into that. And I think our record when going ahead, when we score first in a game, it's ridiculous. I think it's up to like 40 odd games now. If we score first in a game, we win every single time.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not even if you're not in the kind of the Leeds bubble, you wouldn't know this necessarily. But a lot of Leeds fans earlier on in the season were complaining a little bit at the way that we were playing, because if we scored early, we would then back off and we wouldn't try and score any more goals. We would kind of be like, okay, we've scored, let's sit back and maybe get another goal a little bit later on. Not necessarily sit back, but dominate possession and stop creating as many chances. Mm-hmm. Whereas recently, like with the Cardiff game, that was just ridiculous. And then Coventry and Watford, we could have scored more in those games as well. So we do seem to be kind of like getting into flow state now and just scoring a load of goals. Everybody gets in on the act as well.
Yeah. Okay. So why everybody's here? Monday night, try and put your mind forward about a week's time. Obviously, as I said at the beginning, we're previewing this before the Sunderland game. So if there's any injuries or whatnot that happens after this to Leeds, hopefully not. We want both squads full and fit and ready to go. How do you see it unfolding next Monday night?
Yeah, well, the on paper, you look at it and you say, okay, well, the form is that Sheffield United have been winning games, but like you said, they haven't necessarily been performing the best in those games, and sometimes it's just scraping across the line, which I will say, though, is something that champions or teams that get promoted are able to do. Even when they don't play well, they win games. And Leeds, on paper, have been playing really well and, like you said, blowing teams away. So on paper, you go, okay, well, Leeds might go and do something, but there's a number of factors that might change that. Number one is it's away at Sheffield United, so we haven't got that home element, which our away record has been a lot worse than our home record this season. And it's a derby as well, or it's not a close derby, but it's a Yorkshire derby. And I do feel like in these sorts of games, anything can happen. But I mean, like you said, the example to look at is the reverse fixture, and we did dominate that game and create a lot more chances. But it's just about whether we can actually get the job done, because a lot of the time we're best when we go. You know, over the last few weeks and stuff, when you're in a title race, you have the team that goes first doesn't know all the results. So Leeds have been going first a lot of the time, and that's when we tend to just win. But when we have the pressure on us that all the other teams around us have won, it's like, okay, that then becomes a bit of a different thing. And I think I tend to see nerves creeping into the players a little bit at that point. So a game like this, where you are facing a promotion rival, it could be a tasty one. It could go either way. But last season we blew away Ipswich. We beat them 4-0, I think, when they were going for the title, and we also beat Leicester as well, home and away, I think. So we have got a record of doing it, but I don't know. As Leeds fans in general, we do get quite nervous when people say, "Oh, we should win." That's when we're all like, "Oh, oh, maybe not."
Yeah, no, you're not wrong. I just see this going the same way. I think it pains me to say it, but I think Leeds are going to absolutely dominate us. I could be completely wrong, and I kind of hope I am. But if anything says from the reverse fixture, we got played off the park, and you know we're gonna have okay. You're gonna say they're gonna have the extra rest of a couple of days from playing Saturday as opposed to playing Monday night. I just think Leeds come to Bramall Lane and blank us 3-0. I do. I think it's one where Leeds say, okay, enough screwed around. We're done. This is our league this year. Sheffield United, you had fun, but it's it's time to come to the big boy table. And Sheffield United, you're not anywhere near that big boy table in at least my eyes. And I'm not talking about this league, but if promotion goes on for next year for both sides, we're gonna struggle to get 5-6 points next year. Leeds probably with the investment are gonna probably have a better chance at staying up next season. So I think it's just one where Leeds are going to assert their dominance and kind of make Sheffield United pay. And I know that's cynical, and everybody's going to slag me off and say I'm negative, but I mean, if you look at the reverse fixture, as I mentioned, it wasn't even close. But yeah, all should be figured out under the lights of Bramall Lane a week from recording this on Monday.
So, do you think that with your kind of, like you said, it was a bit of a pessimistic prediction. Do you think that a lot of the issues that you've seen with this team is down to the manager, down to the players? Like, do you think the squad's not good enough? Because you have got a number of decent players in the squad.
I will say this, and all football fans to some degree are cynical about their own team. We can all say that. We could be winning 5-0 every single week, and there'd be a fly in the ointment, and someone would we pass the ball to the other team. Oh my God, they're terrible. I just think the team we have right now is good enough to get out of this division. The only thing is when other teams are figuring out Sheffield United, and I don't know if it's going to be close enough to the end of the season where we get over the line. But if you take Gus Hamer out of the game and you make him have to pass the ball where he can't be his normal magician self, then it's like you put the handbrake on with Sheffield United. It kind of slows him down, and then they have to create. There's enough players to create brilliancy out of like one moment.
But there's an over-reliance on him.
Exactly. There's an over-reliance on Gus Hamer. Vinny Souza, yeah, he's good. Chowdhury, I don't know. I would have felt more comfortable if Ali Arblaster wouldn't have got injured and been out for the entire season, because I think our midfield would have a decent setup. Callum O'Hare's played better in spells, but there's also games where he goes missing, and then whatever the hell's up front. You got Tyrese Campbell. He looks good on the ball. Ben Brereton Diaz looks good on the ball. You should have never bought Tom Cannon in for $13 million. You overpaid for him. He's Rhian Brewster 2.0.
Yeah.
It's just, and I'm not the biggest fan of Wilder. Now, he's done everything in the past. The past is the past. It's the here and now. So the fact that they have gone and given him a contract extension, for 3 or 4 years, we're going to be sat here next year on as I said, 5 or 9, however many points Southampton are on, and everybody's going to be called
a bit of a lack of ambition, giving him an extension to the contract.
Yeah,
I know that there's like a little bit of a two-way dislike between Chris Wilder hates Leeds, and he specifically hates Patrick Bamford. And Leeds fans are like love taking the mick out of Chris Wilder as well. But I just feel like he was good at that time where he got Sheffield United up to ninth. I'm not comparing the two in any way, but it's similar to the position we were in where we got up to ninth under Bielsa. You guys got up to ninth or eighth or something, didn't you? Had a really good season. And then it's kind of like, oh, people have figured out what is the best thing to do against us now. And then you have a real struggle after that. And since then, I don't think that Wilder has really proved that he's an ambitious manager to be with. I mean, I didn't even know that they offered him a new contract or he'd signed one, because that just seems like a little bit of a lack of ambition from the outside.
I think, the contract goes through, I believe, 2028, which is 3 years from now. We're going to be, as I was saying, we're going to be sat in this exact position. If we get promoted this time next year, what are Southampton on? 9 points? We're going to be on 9 points, and everybody's going to want him out. And it's like, but I understand when everything's going well at the club, everybody loves it. But you got to realize you're going to be staring 35 defeats in the face next year. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. Unless you're going to come in and spend 200 million pounds on players we've never heard of and try and throw something at the wall and get it to stick, then you might be in with a shout. But if you come up and do what we did last year and spend probably 50, 60 million pounds, if that, you're going to head right back down. And so I don't understand for a club like us who, the goal is to get the Premier League, but then you're going to come back down. I either want to establish ourselves in the Premier League or just stay in the Championship. And for my liking, I want to be in the Championship every day. I would much rather play Championship football for the rest of our lives than play in the Premier League, because it's not built for us, because we're not a flashy side. We're not a Liverpool, a Man United. I mean, even like a Leeds. You can even say that. So I don't know. So when we sack him next year and everybody's like, oh, who's gonna come in? And then there's like, there's nobody that wants to come back in because we're 15 points adrift and we lose 3 more games and we're relegated. To me, it's the circle of life. And I don't even know if we go through 38 games next year. Just saying, if we get promoted, they might not sack him at all. And we might only get 10, 12 points, because to be frank, nobody wanted to come in when we were cut adrift last year. So he came in, took the hometown discount, said, I'll take you back down. And then, he did change formations, but then against Leeds, he reverted back to his back three, and then we got killed.
Yeah, so I was going to say, because I'm just looking at the lineups in that original game. Obviously, there's a lot of change since then. Like you said, Arblaster and stuff is injured for the season and things like that. So you played 3 at the back. I was going to ask, actually, has he been playing 3 at the back, or is he playing?
No, he's been playing a back 4.
Right.
He's, we lost Harry Suter to injury. He's done. He's going back to Leicester because he's done for the season, toward his Achilles, I think.
Yeah.
But you have Anel, Jack Robinson in the middle are your center backs, and then Harry Clark's in there. Harrison Burrows is in there. And then you have Chowdhury and Souza kind of in that defensive midfield area in front of that back 4. And then you have your wide players in BBD and Hamer and O'Hare, and then whoever they partner up front with. In the last couple of matches, it's been Campbell. Brewster's been in there because he's pulled form out of his hind ends out of somewhere. So yeah, it's an interesting setup. Yeah, but it was weird because he changed the formation against you guys, and we went to a back 3 and we got killed.
Yeah, well, I was just thinking, because it's now a similar lineup to what Leeds have. But when I look at the similar positions, I do think that players like Gruev and Tanaka and stuff, I do think they probably have the better of Chowdhury and Souza in that midfield battle.
Yeah.
If Hamer's not back, then you might have Brewster in there as well, who's dropping into almost like a number 10 role as well, and he is going to get bullied if he plays in that role. And so, yeah, and obviously Brent Brereton Diaz is a good player, but he's not a left winger, and that looks like where he played in the game against Luton. Rexaki was someone that we really wanted, so he's a good signing for you guys. But how has he been that good this season?
He's been he was good, and then he's had a spell on the injury table where he missed about a month, and then he's came back and he's played well. He's been influential off the bench. He started some games. I will say for us, he's been more of a useful player off the bench. He's had some games where when he started, he's played really, really well. But then there's other games where there's stinkers and he's got to pull him off. But if Wilder uses him as a sub to give, when the defense is worn down, if we've had a lot of the ball, then he comes on and he's able to knife through the defenders and set up some opportunities. But I mean, he's still young. I mean, everybody wants him in this league, but I think this is his first year playing at this level. He was playing in League One Derby last year.
Yeah. Is it Charles as well, wasn't he, as well? I think.
Yeah. So he's a good player, and he has a certain future. And I mean, United are known for developing youthful talent. You look at Morgan Gibbs White, you look at Illiman and Dye, so on and so forth. We can develop some talent. So that's why I think Raksaki, if he stays with us, maybe next year if we go up, he might be out of his element being in the Premier League. But if we get a loan back from Palace to us, similar to James McAtee last season, coming back to us for back-to-back seasons, it'd be good to watch him grow and get him acclimated for that Premier League experience.
Yeah. Do you guys regret selling Jayden Bogle as well, or is that one that you're?
No, he was terrible. He was pathetic for. I mean, he's an awful player. He was terrible. He couldn't defend to save his life. Going forward, he was good, but I never liked him. He thought he was a great player, but to me, I just thought he was average.
Yeah, I think he's very well suited to be a championship player in 100%. A team that dominates a lot. I think he's going to struggle when we go up to the Premier League, but I think the fact that we only bought him for $5 million, I don't think. Look, we've got a lot of investment. I think if we go up, we buy a new right back, and he's probably a decent off the bench fullback if you've got an injury or whatever. His defending hasn't been. There's been a few moments, but it hasn't been too bad. I think with this system, he gets cover from some of the holding midfielders, so it's not too bad. But him and Firpo basically have the license to just go and be very high up the pitch. So I think that's something that Sheffield United will have to try and deal with, because we essentially at times have like 5 across the front line with the 2 full-backs, the 2 wingers, and the striker all pinning you back. Which is why I was asking about the 3 at the back system, because if you're playing wing backs, then they'll get pinned in. But if you're playing 4 at the back, it will still stop your fullbacks getting as high up the pitch if we are going to try and force the issue. So, but Bogle's been very good for us in that attacking sense and hasn't really had too much to do defensively, which is why perhaps we maybe haven't seen the frailties that you guys have seen out of him. But he's been really good for us this season. It's just I don't think he's Premier League quality.
No. Yeah, I mean, and if you guys do go up and you play him, the attacking players will go right at him and expose his frailty in defense. That's why, as you mentioned, off of the bench is probably in the league above is probably the best place to play him. Or if you're looking to consolidate, loaning him out or sending him to a championship player. Because, I think at best he's a championship player at best. I mean, he don't get me wrong, he showed some spurts of brightness for Sheffield United when we were in the Prem. I mean, but you're only going to have so much because you're only going to have so much when you're so bad of a team, So
I was
he didn't have enough.
A couple of times that he's been playing for you in the Premier League, he's got absolutely roasted because the team was getting absolutely roasted.
Exactly.
I think the same thing applies to Ethan Ampadu. He was very young when he was with you guys, and he was playing in the Premier League, not ready for it, and you guys were getting bad a lot of the time, weren't you? And I think that since he's come in at Leeds, he's really found more of a home in terms of his development. It's like come at the perfect time for him in his development. I think he's had a few years out in Italy to try and hone his craft. He's played at centre-back in defensive midfield for us. He's been amazing for us. So I think that was another one where it was perhaps the wrong time when he was at you guys.
But he was awful when he was playing. You could tell he was so inexperienced. He'd never played at Premier League level. He didn't need to be in that position. And that was, and now looking back at that team was okay. That was the whole COVID deal. And then they had to it almost seemed like we threw a team together with a bunch of random players.
Yeah.
And nothing stuck. And he was awful for us that year.
I think
but
he was only
it's
21, 22 at the time, so he hadn't had much experience.
Yeah.
But you'll see him. I think it'll be him, and if there's no injuries, I think it'll be him and Rodon will be the two centre backs.
Okay.
The two Welsh boys will be the centre backs.
It's interesting to see how Ampadu has grown over the last few years, and he's turned into a very influential player at Leeds. Because when you thought, you're like, there is no way this guy is going to make it in any team in the Premier League. Maybe like a lower league, championship. I thought the best he was going to do was in the championship. And boy, am I wrong. It might be
He might still be
something
right,
where
but I think he's got that ability to go to the next level. I think his defensive awareness has improved massively. His passing range has improved massively. He just seems to have a more calm and confident head in terms of with the ball and without the ball. So I think he's definitely improved in a lot of aspects. He's probably Premier League ready.
Mm-hmm. All right, before we get out of here, I ask every opposing view that comes on, match day go-to beverage.
Do you know what? This is going to be the most boring thing you've ever heard. It's literally just going to be water.
There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that.
I sit and I do live watch-alongs, so I do like full commentary. So not necessarily, some watch-alongs are just chatting about the game in general. I kind of do the full commentary because a lot of people can't get the game for whatever reason, 3 p.m. blackouts and all that sort of thing. So I've always just got this giant bottle of water, and I just chug through that to keep my vocal cords lubricated.
Right? Yeah, I hear you on that one. Max, tell the people where they follow the YouTube channel.
Yeah, it's Leeds Lately, and it's all match reactions. There'll be a live stream and stuff, and a match reaction and stuff for this game that we're talking about here, and all my sort of thoughts on the games and things like that.
Yeah, cool deal. Definitely check it out, as the build up for this one has a proper build up. It has a proper week to build this one up. The only thing I kind of wish it was Saturday 3 p.m. kickoff, but this one's under the lights on Monday Night Football. So until the next preview, I will leave you with Up the Blade.